What's up, guys? Today, I want to talk about how to stay motivated when you're studying for the NPTE. So as many of you guys know, like it's rough. It really is. And you get to the point, like at first you're like, yeah, let's go, let's go, let's go. And then all of a sudden, like 3 or 4 weeks later, you're like, I am sick of this. I don't want to look at this book for another minute. I don't want to look at another practice question. I am so just done. I don't want to do this anymore. That's normal. It happens to everybody. These are just some tips. I'm going to give you 4 tips on how to stay motivated while you're studying for the NPTE so you don't feel this immense burnout. Or if you do, it's not as intense as I'm just going to completely just give up and stop. So the first thing I want you guys to remember is why. Why do you want to become a PTA? Did you have some experience with a family member who went through PT and it was life-changing and life-altering, and it was just such a great experience, and you remember how that family member felt going through PT, something like that? Or it could be something along the lines of like, I'm really into this science stuff and meeting new people, interacting with them and getting to know all these clients and patients that I have, something along those lines. Like thinking back to why did you start this journey in the first place? Because everybody starts off with that motivation, that extreme, like, let's go, let's go, let's go. But why did you start this journey? Take a minute, step back and reflect on it and think, okay, I wanted to be a PTA because XYZ. Write that down on a piece of paper somewhere in your study area where you can see it. Write it down and then sign below your little statement with your name. So first name, last name, comma, PTA, not SPTA, PTA, because we're manifesting here. We're taking that energy and we want to look at that every time you're sitting here. You're like, man, why do I want to do this? You look up and you're like, I want to make people feel comfortable while they're going through one of the most painful periods of their life, comma, your name, comma, PTA. That's a lot more motivating to see that every day than just being like, you can do it. So remember your why. Number 2, create SMART goals. So the acronym SMART. And I'm sure some of you guys have heard of this before because it's very common with any sort of coaching, motivation stuff, just kind of making sure that you're keeping yourself on track and that your goals are actually ones that are going to be able to get done and not goals that are going to overwhelm you. So the S stands for specific. So they need to be specific goals. Like you're like, today I'm going to study, oh, I don't know, let's study the anatomy of the brain. Let's go over it. Let's make sure we know the difference between the hypothalamus and the thalamus and the basal ganglia and what everything does. That's what I'm doing today. I'm going to study these specific topics and I'm going to make sure that I know them. You can measure this by, let's take a couple practice questions. Let's just, maybe one of the apps that we use or something that we're going over is just specific to the neuroanatomy. Okay, well, let's measure this by saying, how many of these questions are we getting right? Are we getting questions wrong that are about the basal ganglia because we're mixing it up or whatnot? Or how much are we measuring this? So let's say our measurement would be what % right of the questions are we getting? Okay, so that checks off. A would be achievable. Okay, so we're just studying the neuroanatomy. We're not studying the entire chapter and the entire content outline of neuro stuff. We're just studying the anatomy. We're not going into deep depth of certain pathologies and diseases and whatnot. We're just making sure we got the anatomy down before we keep going. So yes, that's achievable. We can do that in a couple hours. We don't need to, it's not like we're studying the entire content outline of neuro. We're good. Relevant. Okay, so neuroanatomy and is completely relevant to what we're studying for the boards because the whole foundation of the neuromuscular and nervous systems section is based on the anatomy of the neurological system. Okay, so this is relevant and realistic. It's not like we're studying something that's like, I don't know, some CSCS stuff that's like slightly different and off topic. No, we're studying it from the content from the FSVPT. It's relevant. It's what we need to know. Boom, we're good with the R. The T stands for time. So can we measure this in a certain amount of time? Yes, I said it's a couple hours. So we'll say 2 hours. We're going to just go over neuroanatomy and make sure we know it. Awesome. Good. That's measurable. So by setting goals that are SMART, the S.M.A.R.T goals, we're able to make goals that aren't overwhelming. It's not like you're like, oh, I'm going to study 15 pages of neuro today in the book. And one of the pages is like every single disease under the sun. Like, no, you're making sure you break it down into attainable goals so then you don't get overwhelmed. Number 3, make time for yourself / self-care. If you're noticing you're not sleeping because you're studying so much, if you're not eating well, if you're not taking care of yourself, if you haven't showered in a couple of days, or something along the lines of like you're not going to the gym or you're not being able to do things that you enjoy for yourself, you're missing time with your friends and family. That's just going to drive you into the ground, and isolating yourself is definitely not the way to go with this. So making sure that you're taking a step back, taking time to care for yourself, making sure that you're taking time out of your day that isn't related to boards or studying or anything PT related, that you're just doing your hobbies, things you enjoy, just to make sure that you're not overwhelming yourself, because that's kind of what happens if you dive too deep into all of this. You're going to overwhelm yourself, and then you kind of hit the point of diminishing returns. So you want to put effort into it, but not so much that you're losing taking care of yourself. And again, what I was saying, we do not want to isolate ourselves. So by making sure we can take care of ourselves and see other people, we're keeping ourselves from getting isolated, which brings me to my fourth point: find your village. So you want to make sure that you're finding a group of people that are going through it just how you're going through it. That's why I created PTA Elevation, because I created the PTA boards study group on Facebook. So then you guys can have a group of people that you can visibly see, oh, all these people are going through it with me. They know how I feel. They know how anxious I am after I've taken a practice test and it just didn't go well. And then you also can see that you're not alone in this journey, because it does take a village to do anything you want to. And then that's also why I created the PTA Elevation Board Prep Program, which is a paid service. But within there, I offer lots of coaching and guidance when it comes to certain topics. And I also try to pair you up with somebody to help keep you accountable, whether that be me or another person in the group, just to make sure that you don't feel alone. Because the last thing you want to do when you're going through something that's as stressful and hard as taking the boards is be there by yourself. So if you're interested in coming into our board prep program, you can check out the link in the description. But I mean, I created a lot of this free stuff just to make sure that you guys are not alone, that you guys know, like, I'm here for you, whatever you need. So I hope that this helps you guys, and I hope that you guys found some value in this. I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys.